Welcome to the Storycraft Society. In this week's episode, we're going to be crafting tunnels from our CRAGMAW Hideout set into your story. It's Thursday, and that means we are back with another episode of the Storycraft Society. My name is Garmin, and last week we started crafting our CRAGMAW Hideout set for the Lost Mine of Phandelver adventure. Last week we started with caves. If you haven't seen that video, it's linked in the video description below. But this week we're going to be hitting tunnels, and this is where this project really starts to come to life. I'm ready. Are you ready? Let's get crafting. So the materials list we're going to need for this project is actually going to be very similar to what we needed to the cave build. The only difference is that I don't think we need hot glue for this one, so I'm not going to go over all the specific things, but a lot of the techniques and different materials that we use are going to be used the exact same way in this video as in the caves video. So I broke down the different tunnels into three sections. There's the stream tunnel, the steep tunnel, and the bridge tunnel. And all of their basic sizes and thicknesses are listed on these sheets. I'll be using that as kind of a reference point. So I'm going to start by cutting out all of the various pieces that I need for the different tunnel sections. So for example, the stream tunnel, I'm going to need a 3x3 for piece number 1 and a 3x3 for piece number 2. And I'm going to take the time to cut all of those out, just the generic basic block shape first. That'll make it easier for me to get the layout correct. So once everything's all cut out, you're going to want to take the time to lay everything out. This is really important so that once you build all your pieces, cut them all out, texture them and stuff, you want to make sure that they all fit together well at the end. So taking the time to do this may be a little annoying to have to keep resetting up and removing things around, which you'll see me do a lot through this video. But that's what's going to make sure that all the pieces lock together and fit to make one cohesive unit once it's all done. Now that I've got my basic layout all set, I'm going to start sketching out the shapes of all the different pieces. So I'm starting with the stream tunnel, and I'm working on piece number 1 right now. I'm just going to sketch out the basic general shape and then start lining it up with the next piece. And it's really important that you do this with all the pieces touching, because then that's how you guarantee they're going to be the right width when they connect with one another. Once the pieces are all marked up, it's time to cut them out. I'm going to be using a hot wire table here, but there's no reason that you couldn't use an Olfa knife. I just use the hot wire table because it's faster. Once the basic shapes are all cut out, we're going to move to the trickiest part of this build, which is getting the thicknesses right. The stream tunnel is actually slanting upward, and it goes all the way up until it gets to the twin pools room. So the way that we're going to get that is by shaving each piece down to its biggest thickness. So for piece 1, that's 1/2 inch. For piece number 2, that's 1 inch. For piece number 3, that's 1.5 inches. And piece number 4, that's 2 inches. Once you have that thickness cut, then you can use the piece before it to mark on the next piece. So this is piece number 1 to piece number 2. Now you're seeing piece number 2 to piece number 3, and then piece number 3 to piece number 4 to start getting the measurement, and then at an angle, cut up your tunnel piece to create that slant. So as long as you take your time here, you'll eventually get to a point where they all fit together nice, and they look like this. And then you'll see I'm back to my layout and making sure that everything fits well in the grand scheme of things, because that's what matters. Now, another thing that's worth mentioning is remember that crafting is an organic process. You're going to be taking time and fixing things and moving stuff around. So if a piece doesn't fit in a certain spot, don't be afraid to move it to another place and see if it fits better. Then we're going to start on our bridge tunnel. Much in the same way that we did the stream tunnel, we're going to start by marking the pieces out so we get the general shape of them. making sure that they line up with the piece that they're supposed to connect to. And once that's done, then we're going to move on to cutting. Once those are cut out, we're going to move on to the steep tunnel. Again, making sure that it all fits into our layout. And with the steep tunnel, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to mark it out, get the general shape that we want, and then go get that nice and cut out. So while we're sanding, just like we did with our caves, we're going to want to knock off any unnatural looking edges that look too sharp, making everything look nice and rounded, more natural, less made. And then we're going to tin foil ball all of those pieces. Make sure you hit all available surfaces. Next up is we're going to start marking out the stream that makes its way down and out of the cave. The important part here is to mark from one piece to the next, knowing that they're lined up. That way, once the whole thing is finished, the stream pieces will all line up correctly. Once they're all marked, then we're going to sketch out the general shape of the stream. You see I made that one actually a little bit too wide there. And once that's all done, then just like we used the lighter to do the Twin Pools cave in the last video, we're going to do that same exact technique to burn out the stream. Just don't hold it in one place for too long and you'll get a nice little stream bed like that. And we're ready to move on to our ground texture. So I'm using white glue. My choice is Eileen's Tacky Glue, but you could easily use Elmer's glue. And you're going to cover everywhere where our dirt texture is going to go. When all the pieces are covered in the white glue, then we're going to move on to our sifted backyard dirt. We're going to cover the entire surface and then pat the dirt down in to get a nice good bond. Tap off the extra and then let that dry. Once that dries, then we're moving on to our Black Magic Craft base coat, which is just a 50-50 mixture of black craft paint and matte Mod Podge, and you're going to cover 100% of the surfaces of your tunnel pieces. When you're finished, it should look like this. And then we're ready to move on to paint. So I'm not going to go too in-depth on talking about the paint scheme here because I talked a little bit more in-depth about it in the caves video. If you want to see that, there is a link to that video in the description below. But I'm going to start with a dark brown, and then I'm going to do kind of a brownish gray over the sides of the pieces. Move on to a medium gray dry brush over the sides of the pieces, and then eventually take that up to a tan on the side of the pieces. Once the sides are finished, it should look something like this. And then we're ready to move on to the top, which is going to be a medium brown. And then after the medium brown is done, we're going to move on to a tan, and it's just going to be a light dry brushing to make all of the detail pop. Now we're going to move on to the water. Like I said in the last video, I am not a super amazing painter, but I'm just going to use the same colors that I used in the pool section, where I'm focusing on the deeper blues and green kind of color where the stream would be the deepest, and then the lighter blue and tan in the areas where it is going to be less deep. And then, so you can see on the banks and stuff, I'm painting out with kind of the lighter blue, and in the deeper center section, I'm painting out the darker kind of green and blue color. The one thing I will say when you're painting through this is make sure that even your deepest color is still brighter than the deepest color in your pool, otherwise it'll look a little unnatural. Then we're going to move on to Lexel. This is an elastic sealant that I bought from Lowe's here in the US, but any like crystal clear caulk will do the trick here. This is just my brand of choice, and you're going to want to fill the stream entirely up with the stuff, and then you're going to take your tool and just kind of push it around and tease it so that it looks like flowing water. And the trick to it is you want to make sure that the direction that the stream is flowing, you start from the highest point and work to the lowest point. You can just pull and kind of make ripples and waves, And I think that this stuff really just makes one of the most convincing moving water textures that's out there right now. Once that's all finished, it should look something like this. A really nice moving stream effect. And we're ready to see what it looks like with our whole set. And there we have our tunnels, and we finally get to see our CRAGMAW hideout coming together. But we're not done yet though, because next week we're gonna be hitting all the scatter terrain that we're gonna need to really bring this piece to life. That's gonna be our ramps, our stalagmites, and then the goblin bridge, which is the focus for our PCs when they first enter the cave. If you enjoy this content, please leave me a like and a comment down below. Let me know how building this is going for you. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and hit the notification bell to know when we release our videos every week. But until next Thursday, I'll be seeing you.